Yo, what's up? Welcome to Kinda Funny Games Daily for Monday, September 13th, 2021. I'm one of your hosts, Blessing Adeoye Jr. Joining me is LaCroix Poppy himself, Tim
Ooh.
Geddes.
See, I like that a lot better. That feels good to me. That feels
That's one you can
accurate.
stand
That
by.
feels
You like that
yes.
better than what?
I can better than any things we're not going to talk about. But I like the LaCroix Poppy for sure. I appreciate that, Bless. And
Of
also,
course.
I know it's going to get trite at some point, but I don't care. You're looking fucking awesome. The hair, the polo.
Appreciate
I love
it.
that you always are rocking the polo. You got to make this your thing. You're already kind of doing it, but I feel like
Oh,
now
yeah.
that you have the hair too, it's turning into a vibe. Bless.
It's
Gotta
definitely
keep
a
it up.
different vibe than what I'm used to. Like I feel like I'm converting into a different person almost, right? Like with like the different styles. And I'm digging it. Though it's hard to dig it when you are on the opposite side wearing your leather, wearing your, of course, dope ass hair.
I got it.
Like you look
I need
great
the
today.
hair. You need to do that.
You
Thank
look
you.
great
Thank you
today.
very much.
I mean,
Look at us.
Tim,
Just a couple of cute boys.
You've like fully become the bad guy from Doug.
And I appreciate that. Roger Klotz.
Oh,
I'll
1000%.
take it. I'll take it. You know what I mean?
And I'm Doug in the scenario, by the way.
Yeah, but you're like the fresh to death Doug.
No, you're more of a
You're like-
Skeeter, right? You're
you're-
cool.
Right now, you're more Dougie fresh than Doug funny. You know what I mean?
I don't know if I would describe my current style as cool. Mainly the polo. Like polos aren't cool.
I know, but like
What?
that
You're
makes
bringing
them
them back.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. I feel like I'm
Oh,
doing
you
too much.
don't act like you're all coy about it. You know what you're doing.
Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing so good.
You have a
So
good weekend?
Bless. Oh, I had a great weekend, but it's an even better week now that I'm starting it off with you.
Oh yeah, Tim, you're about to have a great Monday because we're going to talk about Deathloop reviews being up, Fortnite being invaded by cubes, and more because this is Kinda Funny Games Daily. Each and every weekday at 10 a.m. live right here on twitch.tv/kindafunnygames. We run you through the nerdy news you need to know about. If you're watching live, you can correct us when we get stuff wrong by going to kindafunny.com/you're wrong. If you don't want to watch live, you can watch later on youtube.com/kindafunnygames, roosterteeth.com, or you can listen later on podcast services around the globe by searching for Kinda Funny Games Daily. To be a part of the show, to patreon.com/kindafunnygames, where bronze members or above get to write in, and silver members or above get the show ad-free with the exclusive daily post show. Housekeeping for you, our Deathloop review is up right now. It's a Kinda Funny Gamescast featuring Gamespot's Tamoor Hussain, who gave it a 10, and P.S. I Love You XOXO's Janet Garcia. It's an in-depth, spoiler-free review, and it's up right now on youtube.com/kindafunnygames and on podcast services around the globe. And then also a reminder that it's September on Twitch. Viewers across the platform throughout the month can take advantage of 20% off subscriptions and for first-time subscribers and gifted subs. Your support means the world to us here at Kinda Funny, and right now you can take advantage of this deal and receive benefits like ad-free viewing, sub emotes, and more. Thank you to our Patreon producers, the Kinda Funny Destiny 2 PC clan, and Blackjack. Today we're brought to you by DoorDash and Canva, but we'll tell you about that later. For now, let's begin with what is and forever will be the Roper Report. It's time for some news. We have 5 stories today.
Baker's dozen.
Starting with our number one, the big one. This morning, Deathloop reviews went up. We have a Deathloop review roundup. Right now, the game's sitting on Metacritic at an 88, and an 88 as well on OpenCritic. I'm going to start off with Matt Purslow at IGN, who gave it a perfect score, 10 out of 10, and says, despite its seemingly endless complexities, Deathloop is one of the most confidently designed games I've ever played. Arcane Studios has crafted a world made of ideas linked by meaningful connections. Time influences space, space influences tactics, and tactics influence loadouts. Its unique, high-concept ideas around time loops and non-linear investigation work are implemented with elegance, making its systems feel effortless to navigate, learn from, and ultimately master. A new high watermark for Arcane and developers of similar games to aspire to, Deathloop is a game like no other. Tamoor Hussain at GameSpot, who of course you can check out on the Kinda Funny Gamescast that went up this morning, gave it a 10 out of 10 and says perhaps the most laudable part of Deathloop is how it takes so many seemingly disparate things and creates harmony between them. Gameplay systems that feel isolated become pieces of a bigger puzzle, and when you see how they seamlessly connect together, you realize how special an achievement it really is. Similarly, on paper, different aesthetics should be like oil and water, but they come together effortlessly to be part of a greater whole, and for me, that's what Deathloop is all about. And then Phil Savage at PC Gamer gave it an 89 out of 100 and says Deathloop is all about what happens when things don't go to plan, about panic and improvisation, about learning from a mistake and taking those lessons forward. Trapped in a time loop, it doesn't matter if you botch your way through combat, botch your way through combat encounter after combat encounter. It doesn't even matter if you die and get kicked back to the beginning of a day. All that matters is that in doing so, you gain some information that'll help you the next time around. For the first few hours of Deathloop, I was more interested in it as Arcane's response to Dishonored, a series that I love. I was enjoying myself and looking forward to uncovering mysteries of the island, but was more intrigued by what Arcane was saying about the genre as a whole, and about the way people played its previous games. At every stage, the game is telling you not to worry. Enjoy yourself, don't sweat the mistakes. It wasn't until another player invaded my game that it all clicked together, and I started enjoying Deathloop on its own terms. Tim fucking Geddes, 1, have you tried out Deathloop at all? Have you started it? 2, what do these reviews do for your hype for the game?
I am about an hour and a half in. I am enjoying the absolute hell out of the game, and these reviews just confirm how hyped I am about the game and completing the game. I'm so stoked to go back now. Like my first hour and a half, I'm like, this thing is real special, but is it going to be 10 out of 10 special? I wasn't so sure. Hearing Tam talk about it this way, it getting a 10 from IGN and GameSpot.
And GameSpot.
That is a big, big deal. They do not give out that many 10s. I think in IGN's history, there's like 30 10 out of 10s total. Like that is a very, very big deal. So, and also there's very few people I respect more than Tam when it comes to video games or pretty much anything else in life.
Yeah.
So
I mean, especially stealth games, right? Like Tam has been along for our whole Metal Gear Solid playthrough, and hearing Tam point out all the intricacies of the stealth design and like the story and Kojima and all that stuff, but specifically like him pointing out, hey, this is how the AI goes through each room and clears out before they go back to doing their tasks. Here's how like Kojima innovated stealth in X, Y, and Z way. If there's somebody who I'm gonna trust in an opinion regarding stealth games, Tamoor Hussain is the dude.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think my favorite quote here is actually from Phil Savage at PC Gamer saying, at every stage, the game's telling you not to worry, enjoy yourself, don't sweat the mistakes. And even early in the game, I definitely get that vibe where it is about having fun and kind of just using the different systems as they're kind of coming at you, and learning the systems itself has been fun. On top of that, like as I said when we did our preview back in the day, but now playing through it and actually seeing things in context, I love the dialogue. I love the way this game is written, and it's just kind of like relentless in how much is thrown at you with characters, with just these little moments, with just dumb little funny bits and things that are happening in the world that like make it feel very unique. Like we've seen the trailer, I don't know, 3,000 times already. It's some variation of a gameplay demo of this game over the last couple of years. But the fact that playing it still feels fresh and feels like things that we haven't seen before, even if we've seen moments, the context they're in is so much bigger and better than I've expected so far, that like I am so happy to hear this news.
Are you at a place where it makes sense now? Like what they've been pitching through the trailers and through the previews? Because I know for the longest time, when we did our hands-off preview back in spring, we all came back and talked about it on Gamescast, and we are all like, yeah, no, the game looks really awesome. It looks really cool. We're even more confused about how it works now. But I know for me, and for plenty of people having beat it now, it's come together way more. For you, being an hour and a half in, do you feel like it makes sense now, or are you still trying to get a grasp on what it is?
No, I'm still very much in the getting a grasp of it all. But
That's
like fair. They're doing a good job. Like I feel like any question I have is a question they want me to be asking. Right? It's not like I'm like trying to get ahead of this thing. It's like the game is extremely well designed for moment to moment, keep you satisfied with a loop of like, hey, you're asking this question, here's this answer. And sometimes they'll give you it like immediately, like with the use of the words popping up on the screen in front of you and stuff. Like I love where I'm like, what's going on with that? Like there's mystery upon mystery, but it doesn't feel overwhelming. It feels kind of intentional. And that's the best type of mystery, is one where you know there's a good answer at the end. And to me, that's what excites me most about these 10 out of 10 scores is, oh, it comes together well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially for where you're at in the game right now. The game does a good job. We talked about this on the Gamescast review about the game being surprisingly handholdy, but in a good way, where when the game eventually opens up, it tracks pretty much every single lead that you're on, because the whole premise of the game, of course, is that you're trying to take out the 8 visionaries of the island. And so you're trying to set up these dominoes in a way where you can take them all out in one day. But without how handholdy the game is, you wouldn't be able to like set all that up without like having a copious amount of notes and like trying to keep up with things in a way that would just be impossible. But when the game opens up, the game does a good job of holding your hand in that way. In the first few hours, the game is fairly even way more handholdy than even like once it opens up, right? Like you are right now, it sounds like you're on the tutorial path of the game being like, okay, no, this is what a loop is. Here we're gonna slowly introduce what reprise is, which allows you to come back to life a couple times. We're gonna introduce you residuum, which allows you to keep items between runs and all these things, right? Like the game is slowly onboarding you in a way that it lasts for a couple hours in the beginning, but it's very necessary because once the game opens up, it opens up in a way that I've not seen a game structured similarly whatsoever, right? Like the time loop mechanic, we're in the year of time loops right now, right? When you look at Returnal, when you look at Forgotten City, when you look at 12 minutes, and all these games function similarly, but differently in ways where 12 minutes and Forgotten City are both games that are essentially puzzle games where you're using the loop in order to restart NPC routines, and so you can follow them and track all these things. But they do that in very different ways, right? Returnal is a roguelite, right? And its loop stuff is very much narrative based. This game uses its time loop as a setup for, hey, like in any like open game where you have side quests and you have leads and all this stuff, you are fast traveling throughout your map. You are going to the using Breath of the Wild for an example, right? Like you're going to the Great Plateau for a specific quest, or you're going to the Lanayru region for a specific quest. Deathloop kind of does the same thing, except it's like, hey, you're going to this district at noon to chase this lead. You're going to this other district at evening to chase this lead, and it's very interesting in how that stuff plays out and how each loop you kind of have to pay attention to the items you have and figure out, all right, I want to keep this gun and I want to keep this slab because these are going to be very, very powerful for me in the future. And it's really interesting, and I think people are going to have a fun time coming to terms with exactly how it works and then having fun with it. I think that's the best thing that the game does.
Plus, I have two questions for you. You
What's
have
up?
beaten it as well, correct?
Yes, I have.
How long is it? And would you give it a 10 out of 10?
Ooh, so for how long is it? That's an interesting question because for me in my playthrough, it took 17 hours, but I couldn't tell if that was going to be the average playthrough. Like in the way that the game is set up, it feels like you can tackle it. I mean, you can tackle it any way you can. And that comes down to you have a list of leads and you can take it lead branch by lead branch, or you can just go about it day by day and just do the leads that are available for to you at any point in the day. And so in the ways that I was tackling it, there were times where I was like, I could be doing this smarter. I feel like I'm not, like stacking leads on certain days in ways that would make them go by quicker, right? Like what if I could knock out X, Y, and Z thing in one go and then come back in the next part of the day and do a different thing. I feel like I wasn't doing that too smartly. And so I feel like some people are probably going to complete it quicker. I want to say Tamoor beat it in like 11 hours. And when Janet was talking about it, she seemed like she was still fairly early. And that was her in like, I want to say 11 or 12 hours as well. And so like, for me, it took me 17 hours, but I think that mileage may vary. Regarding the 10 out of 10 question, I don't know, honestly. Like I can see the argument for 10 out of 10. I know when Tamoor said 10 out of 10 during the review, I was shocked. I was like, oh shit, like he did it, right? And waking up today and seeing IGN as well gave it a 10 out of 10, I was like, oh shit, all right, damn, like people are really digging this thing. I think I would probably be more in like the 9.5 range, 9.6 range. For me, my biggest critique with it is that in my last third with the game, it kind of overstayed its welcome in a way where I had unlocked all the weapons that I felt like I needed to unlock. I was finding a lot of repeat items. I felt like I had overseen the mileage that I gotten in terms of actually leveling up, empowering up. And at that point, it was just me trying to get to the end of the game. And that felt way less interesting than the first third where I was trying to understand it, the middle third where I was really playing around with these elements and, figuring out cool ways in which to play around and have my player choice, my freedom to play actually means something. And in that last third, it was very much me being like, all right, I'm done. Like, I'm barreling toward the end. I'm ready to do the final bit. I'm ready to line these things up, but it's taken me a while to just finish up the leads. And that said, right, like, I think a lot of that comes down to me comparing the game to something like MGS5, which I would say is my favorite stealth game ever. I would say is the best stealth. If we're talking about stealth gameplay, MGS5, I would say, is the best stealth game ever made. And the fact that I'm comparing this game to that, I think, puts it in its own league by itself. But because I'm comparing this game to that, I look at certain things like how in MGS5, if you're shooting people in the head later on, the game will adapt to that and make its soldiers start wearing helmets, right? Like there's a certain level of freedom and reaction and like weather effects and systems at play in MGS5 that I think could benefit Deathloop so well in a Deathloop 2. And I think for me, if Deathloop 1 is a 9.5 out of 10, Deathloop 2 for sure is going to be a 10 out of 10 because now they've set up this thing that feels truly unique and original. And I can easily see them layering on top even more systems that take it from being like, all right, you guys pitched the idea and the idea is fabulous. And now let's take this and turn it into something that people are going to like go crazy over because, they put in X, Y, and Z thing that they've seen other developer do or they've learned over the course of making this game.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. No, like it's for sure. Like if we're talking about game of the year, it's for sure at the top of my list. I almost put out a joke or a tweet jokingly about like Deathloop, Life is Strange, or Eternal fighting for the top spot in my game of the year. And that's what it feels like right now. Like any of those, I can make the argument for number one for me, right? Like the Life is Strange story is my favorite story of the year. Returnal, the gameplay loop there, and like the visuals and audio and all that stuff there is like, top notch. And then Deathloop probably has my favorite, I guess, gameplay loop in a game. And so like, it's this year, it's easy to look at the slate of games and go, it's a chill year. Oh, like this year doesn't compare. But like for me, it very much is another 2019 in terms of there are a lot of cool different types of games and they're gonna hit hard for audiences of those games. So if you're a stealth or a arcane person, Deathloop is like that. Deathloop will be a 10 out of 10 for you, right? Like if you're a roguelite person, Returnal is your game. If you're a narrative person, Life is Strange is your game. And so like Deathloop, I'm very excited for people to check out and actually play because a lot of people are gonna like this game.
Hell yeah.
Tim, I want to bring in a question from Grezick, who writes into patreon.com/kindafunnygames and says, "Good morning, all. Deathloop reviews are dropping and it's doing fantastic. This marks the second game in a row from a Microsoft-owned studio that is getting touted as a Game of the Year contender. While both Deathloop and Psychonauts 2 were started prior to the studio's acquisition by Microsoft, they at the very least speak to what Double Fine and Arcane are capable of. Does this at all move the needle on your perception of the quality of games to expect from Microsoft's internal studios, or do you think we should wait until games created wholly under Microsoft's ownership are released before making that judgment? Thanks for all you do, Grezick." Tim, what does this do for you in Microsoft Studios and that the Thanos Infinity Gauntlet of studios that Microsoft is holding right now?
I mean, look, it is undeniable that there is insane talent there that are actively putting out video games. And I think that is a very good sign because for a long time, that wasn't the case when we look at Xbox game studios. And now, unfortunately, they're in that place where both those games so far are either not on the Xbox consoles or at least not exclusive to the Xbox consoles. And to some extent, that doesn't matter. But when we're talking about the context of this question, like it is fueling the you choose a side, right? Like I don't necessarily want to call it the console wars, but it's just like it is comparing PlayStation's output to Xbox's output. And I think that there's a lot to consider there. I think that these being Game of the Year things, you even just said it yourself, like it's Game of the Year in a 2019 type year, but not in a 2017 or 2018. Like we still haven't seen the God of War 10 out of 10 or the Breath of the Wild 10 out of 10 from these Xbox game studios in a very long time, and at least not this generation. That I think is the bigger question of will we ever see those? The other question is, do we ever need to see those? And I don't think we do. I think that obviously Microsoft's doing its own thing, just like Nintendo is, just like Sony is. And I think those things are all going to work in synergy. It's really interesting that Arcane is already putting out Redfall, right? Like that is announced that is going to be an Xbox title. So I think that is going to be a bigger sign of an answer to this question, right? Because that is going to be from the ground up with Game Pass in mind and all that. How is Game Pass going to affect these games and how they're made? It's going to, and it already is. So I really wonder, and I don't think that's a bad thing, but again, I do think that at some point it's silly for us to keep going back and expecting Microsoft to pull out these giant narrative-based third-person action-adventure games that are trying to hit that 10 out of 10 game of the year across all the board levels, right? But they have so much talent and so many so much great output already, like even just this year looking at it. And like when you start thinking about the fact that Deathloop's going to come to Game Pass, it's going to be late, but it's going to eventually, right? Like there is an inherent value there, and that value is getting these super high quality games at a super high quantity in the hands of as many gamers as possible for cheap. That's awesome.
Yeah. I think it very much depends on the angle you look at it from, because I think you make the good point that, you know, we're not necessarily seeing the 2017 level Breath of the Wild or like a 2018 level God of War, but Deathloop, you know, is getting 10 out of 10s from IGN and GameSpot. And I think if you're looking at Xbox's slate of studios right now, I would say Arcane is their Insomniac, right? Like Arcane just put out Deathloop, which is going to be a hit, which is seemingly going to be the most critically successful game this year. And they're going to follow that up with Redfall. And like, hopefully that hits too. You know, that being from Arcane Austin means that it's going to follow in the footsteps of Prey. And I know quite a few people that love Prey, but Prey also wasn't like the big hit, but maybe that ends up changing in the way that Dishonored 1 and 2 were amazing games for Dishonored fans, but I would say failed to reach the widely, wide mainstream success. Deathloop has way more the potential to do that, especially in this year when you look around and look at the level of games in the context of which Deathloop is coming out. It's coming out as a PS5 exclusive game, right? In the first year that the PS5 is out. And the main game that the PS5 has this fall. And it's a 10 out of 10 from IGN and GameSpot. Like, Deathloop is in a place for not only critical success, but also mainstream sales success. And we'll see how that reflects. Either way, you know, going into whatever Arcane Leon's next game is, whether it's Deathloop 2 or not, Xbox is not going to hamper them being able to put out the follow-up to this game, right? If Arcane Leon goes, we want to make Deathloop 2 that's even better than Deathloop 1, Xbox is not going to look at that and go, well actually we want you to make something that is more suitable for Game Pass. I think they look at that and they're like, yeah, fucking do it, because that's going to do so much for us and Game Pass and for the catalog as a whole, right? You look at Xbox's other studios, what's the one that they keep calling the quadruple A studio that's working on Perfect Dark? I expect greatness.
Or initiative.
I expect greatness from the initiative. And I know that's based on purely nothing, because all we've seen is the Perfect Dark trailer and them talk it up. But like, you gotta expect greatness based on how they've talked it up and the fact that they're working on Perfect Dark. You look at, you know, Starfield, and that is going to be another traditional Bethesda Game Studios game that's going to be the follow-up to Skyrim and Fallout 4, right? Like, we have to expect greatness from Microsoft Game Studios. And so I'm in the place where from that angle, like, I think they're in a really good place. I think comparing again, like Bethesda Game Studios and now Arcane and these other studios to games like God of War, Spider-Man, and Breath of the Wild, I think there's something to prove there, but I don't think they're beyond proving that. I think they're in a place where maybe they can, and we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, we've been saying we'll see about Xbox for 10 years now, plus. So that's the only thing there. It's like, at some point, the proof just has to be in the pudding of what they're doing. And I think that they have, in my opinion, just proven that they're doing something different. And I applaud them for that. I think that we have never seen, and this has been since last year, since we really had a solidified vision of what the Xbox Series is and what the PlayStation 5 is going to be. They're on different tracks, doing different things. And I think that every once in a while, those things can kind of overlap and align. But I think that regardless of any of that, the video game ethos is too ingrained in consumers that exclusives matter to an extent. And exclusives matter with these third-party marketing and all that stuff. Like, that helps, mainly in marketing. Where it really matters is the first-party exclusives, because that is where there is a big push and there is an understanding of a library that, to a lot of core gamers, they understand, oh, this is from PlayStation Studios. Well, I freaking loved Last of Us 2, so I'm going to give Ghost a shot because it's from the same pedigree, right? Xbox Game Studios has that too. They just need to keep pushing that way. And that's the thing what you're talking about of Deathloop 2 eventually coming out and being an Xbox exclusive, being part of that. It's like, yeah, the moment that they can have, well, Deathloop 1 was great, so we assume Deathloop, we're going to buy that because it's an Xbox Game Studio. I don't think Xbox Game Studios has earned that yet. And I think that, I don't know that it ever will. And again, they're playing a different game because of Game Pass and because of the way everything's structured. But I hope that we see a day that Xbox Game Studios means the same thing that PlayStation Studios does, or the Nintendo First Party Studios does, for their first party exclusive lineup.
See, I think this is an interesting conversation, because I think you're right, but I also don't know I also don't know if we'll get there to where, like, you mentioned PlayStation Studios. Whenever we see a PlayStation Studios logo pop up at the beginning of any trailer, there's a level of hype and excitement because we're looking forward to, even if it's a Ben Studios game, right? Like a PlayStation Studios logo foresees, there's still a level of expectation, even though
Yeah.
Days Gone came out and it was like pretty average in terms of reviews, right? There's still gonna be that level of, oh, but it's a PlayStation Studios game, and so we're looking forward to it. Xbox Game Studios they're in an interesting place because there's just a breadth of the types of games they're making in a way that Xbox Game Studios being at the beginning of a trailer could mean Forza Horizon 5. It could mean the next Elder Scrolls. It could mean Hellblade 2, right? It could also mean like smaller games, right? Like it could mean something from Double Fine. Like there's a level of, I guess, diversity and breadth between them hitting the AA sphere, but then going all the way up to the top of AAA. And I think they're fine with that, especially with Game Pass, right? Game Pass is going to be the breadth of those games being allowed to exist and allowed to flourish on that platform. But I think that puts them in a very interesting place of we'll see how that works out. Like I think for them, I would say that seems like a good strategy, right? To have that diversity in catalog.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does allow for them not having like that prestige branding that you associate with a Nintendo or even a PlayStation at this point.
Yeah. And now, having said that, I know that we've said this a million times in the past, but I can't wait to see them 3 years from now. Does Xbox Game Studios mean something way more when we have had Starfield, when we've had Elder Scrolls 6, when we've had all these other games? Like at some point, does Bethesda stop being equal billing with Xbox Game Studios and instead put underneath them so that Xbox can really shine and mean what we're talking about? Or are they going with a different strategy? I don't know, but all the expectations are on them. They have a more killer lineup potential than ever in the coming years. So again, the most exciting time to be a gamer of all time. We're in it.
It's a very exciting time. Speaking of exciting things, let's talk about story number 2. I'm branding this the Kev check-in because whenever we have a Fortnite news story, for some reason they always land on Blessing and Tim days. And I like Fortnite fine. I don't think Tim cares about Fortnite whatsoever, but we do have the one and only Kevin Coelho, who adores Fortnite, who plays Fortnite all the time. And so this is the Kev check-in. Story number 2, Fortnite Season 8 is all about cubes. I'm pulling from Andrew Webster at The Verge. Kev, I have a trailer you can play in the background without sound as I read through the story. It's the trailer for the new season of Fortnite. The alien invasion is over, and now Fortnite's island is ... full of cubes. Season 8 of the Battle Royale second chapter just launched, and it's called simply, quote, Cubed. The premise is pretty strange. According to developer Epic, the cubes that used to power the giant alien mothership have now been set free to wreak havoc on the island. As with all new seasons, the update means a combination of new characters, locations, weapons, and even portals to transport players to a monster-filled realm. The launch follows an explosive live event that took place over the weekend. First, here's the basic story via Epic. Quote, the alien and IO war is over, but a new war has taken shape. One where you're a combatant. After Sloan double-crossed you and left you to perish on the mothership, the cubes that powered it are now free. These things are a bigger threat to the island than those aliens could have ever been. They have no face, no speech, but they're sentient and have 6 sides of mouths. I'm going to pause here and say that I understand none of these words, and I'm just hoping to dear God that this makes sense to Kevin and to you people who play Fortnite religiously and follow the story. If you think the corruption they've caused is bad now, you have no idea what can happen if you let them stomp all over the island. It doesn't matter if you're a pro-alien or pro-IO, it'll take all the help we can get to keep the island from falling. It's up to everybody, including you, so take my information below and put it to good use, and quote. That's the end of the story synopsis from Epic. Back to The Verge. The biggest change in Chapter 8 appears to be a new element called, quote, the Sideways, which is described as a, quote, dark, malevolent, monster-filled reality, which is spread by the cubes. Players can access it via portals. In addition to the monsters, it features low gravity and no building, and it'll impact different island locations. Players will be able to get a new crafting component from these areas to create superpowered sideways weapons. This season also brings back some classic guns, including the automatic sniper rifle and harpoon gun. Kevin, I'm going to stop here. There are a couple more things to shout out. But before I do, like, 1, does this make sense to you? 2, did you experience the event yesterday? 3, does this get you hyped?
Unfortunately, I was not able to experience the event. I was out of town. The story, like, I don't think anyone has ever cared about the story about Fortnite, and I kind of feel like they don't either. But like, whatever. I get what they're
put
doing.
a lot of work
I
into
love
it, seemingly.
You know what I mean? 'Cause it's like,
I just read a lot of words that I didn't
yeah,
understand,
but like,
which is, for me, the telltale sign of they really tried with the story.
nah, I think it's more
Like when I
that
read Destiny.
they have an idea and they're like, ooh, how do we make this work? I love that it's the sideways, because it's got to be legally distinct from the upside down.
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah, I mean, cool. Like, am
season.
I excited about this? I really don't care about the different seasons. It sounds like we're gonna get a lot more bullshit that I don't want to deal with, but whatever. Hopefully they get rid of some of that stuff. Some people in chat are saying I'm wrong. Cool. You like the story.
About people caring about the story.
Yeah, I'm in it for the wins. You know what I mean? Also, this is
I hear you.
interesting. This is the thing that was supposed to be The Rock, and he's hanging out in the bottom of the
Do you
ocean,
think
it
this
looks
means they'll
like.
finally bring in The Rock?
I don't know, because it's not like
Cubes?
he's like lost his helmet.
Ooh, I see what you did there, Tim.
Kind of, I guess.
Damn. I also want to shout out Kevin, at the bottom of the news story in the doc. I have a couple of links because they're adding in some new skins, including
that's the interesting stuff.
yeah. And so in the first
Look
link,
at
I
that.
have
Tim, look at
Fabio
that skin.
Sparklemane,
Hell
which
yeah.
is for audio listeners. It's like a standing stallion with just abs for days. These are some sexy, or unicorns, I should say, not even stallion. These are some
No,
unicorns.
still call him the sexy stallion. I like that.
Sexy stallion does have a nice ring to it. I love the one on the left, the black one with like the fiery red hair. It looks
Yeah.
badass. And I don't know how to feel about this overall. This is awakening something in me.
I like it. Like, I love this, but I don't know how I feel about it.
I love it in one way, just in like the absurdity of it. But like another part of me is like, it's kind of sexual for Fortnite.
I mean, Fortnite's been a lot of things.
yeah.
I think it's always been
Fortnite
its
has
strength.
always been sexual. Like, you look at some of the butts on these characters, it's intense. Like, if you're running behind Poison Ivy, you got a hell of a show.
I feel
Jesus
that.
Christ.
I mean,
These
you're not
games-
wrong. You're not wrong at all. Because I forget who it was. It might have been Chung Li who I was running
Yeah,
behind.
you
and I was
play
like,
Chun Li.
God
That's
damn.
right.
God damn.
The,
Kevin,
the way that this game has like continues to just kind of expand and change things up, like I think that it's really cool that they have kind of done what MMOs used to do, like the World of Warcraft age or like the EverQuest and all that stuff of like the just content drops coming to the people that are invested being there, but made it mainstream, and not just mainstream, but the most mainstream thing ever, where this game just keeps kind of reinventing itself and adding a bunch of things. And it's interesting that, like, obviously if it has Star Wars or Marvel character or something, Kevin's going to be more interested than just like a bunch of,
well, Tim, speaking of that, you have another link here if you can pull it up, Kevin. I don't know if this is leaked or official, but it seems like they are adding in a bunch more characters for the new season, including Carnage, which you can see on the left. Kevin, does that do
Kevin's
anything for you?
favorite.
I mean, I like literally just bought Venom like 3 days ago.
But now you have the better
So-
Venom, Carnage.
I mean, honestly,
That's the red one, Kevin. That's the red one.
this makes me excited. Like, is that movie going to be terrible? And do I not want to support it in any way? Sure. Yeah, 100%. But if I get a free skin out of it, that's Carnage, like, I'm down to play with them. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. Yeah, no, like they do have I mean, Tim, I'm with you, right? Like they've done a really cool thing in terms of the events, right? That like, inherently kind of started off as an MMO thing, right? With like live games coming to fruition like over a decade ago. But now like Fortnite's really adopted it in a way where they've mainstreamized MMO events in a way that like is really cool and really fascinating. And, I didn't realize that the event was happening yesterday, but like I was, like I had plans to hang out with a friend and they messaged me back and they were like, hey, unfortunately I have to cancel because Fortnite is doing a thing, and I forgot that Fortnite's doing a thing. And I was like, fair. I for a split second I was like, should I tune into the Fortnite event? And I don't even care about Fortnite events like that, but I know it's a big enough thing and an exciting enough thing that it is appointment viewing in this strange way where if you like games, period. I know there are plenty of people that hate on Fortnite because it's popular, and I understand all that, but if you're tuned in and that's happening, if you miss a Fortnite event, it almost does feel like you're missing like a pop culture moment in video games, which is wild.
I feel like I don't respect the Fortnite events. I don't think like they're worth watching. Like the big one, Galactus, recently. I was very stoked
we
for
streamed
it.
that, right?
Yeah, I was very stoked for it, but then it was also like 10 minutes and like you just point and click some stuff, and it's like, oh, well, that wasn't really worth it. I didn't even get any like random loot from it. So I don't think it's a huge deal. I'm more excited for like today when we turn it on and it's like, what does the map look like? What am I dealing with? Like, what new bullshit? Hopefully, they take some of the old bullshit out. You know.
See, I would still include that in there, right? Like, I feel like it is a good, all-encompassing like marketing move of, okay, cool, we're doing this event, we're shutting the game down, we put it back up, and there's a whole new thing for Fortnite fans who may not have cared about the thing.
The event, they'll do the event and then shut it down for like a night, and it's like, well, damn, you just wasted all the steam. You should have shut it down yesterday, done the event, and then immediately been like, all right, the update's live. That would make way more sense, but instead they don't do that.
I wonder if they will one day. Like, I wonder, like that. That's
I heard they're afraid. I heard Donald Mustard's scared.
But I think it's just it's the excuse of being able to shut down servers so you can prep things, right? Like, it's them. Did you just say Donald Mustard's scared? That killed him.
Kevin knows his name. Like, can pull that out is fucking hilarious to me. Number one Fortnite fan, Kevin Koala. You gotta
love it. But Kevin, one last thing, because we were on this long. Did you not tune into the Ariana Grande event? Because I saw that all over Twitter, right? Like, people what I can gather as an outside looker, these events are a hit because whenever they happen, I see them all over Twitter, especially when there's a concert going on.
That I think is very different, but yeah, I did miss that. Okay. I just don't have like the sort of schedule that lends itself to like, okay, it's 11 a.m. on a Sunday. I'm gonna turn on the Ariana Grande event.
That's fair, Kevin.
That's how she says her name, Tim. Fucking Google it. We should respect her and her wishes. I don't call you Geddes.
You know what else we should respect? Patreon.com/kindafunnygames. Remember, that's where you can go to get the show ad-free. And speaking of ads, let us tell you about our sponsors.
This episode is brought to you by HBO Max. If you're here, you probably love video games, but sometimes we have to face the cold, hard truth. We can't game all the time. Sometimes we got to kick back and watch some movies and some TV too. So it's a good thing HBO Max is here to save the day with all of your favorite DC content. HBO Max has an expansive superhero collection to feed your fandom. Greg Miller is stoked, of course. They've got Wonder Woman, they got Justice League, Stargirl, Batwoman, HBO's Shazam, Suicide Squad. The list goes on, of course. Plus, the streaming platform lets you download your favorite titles and take them with you on the go. All the bingeable collections handpicked by humans, not robots. Personally, I've been enjoying a whole bunch of different things over on HBO. I love all the day and date releases. We got The Matrix now coming out in December. That's really exciting to look forward to. We got Malignant. I'm about to watch that this weekend. Check out some of the best superhero content and so much more only on HBO Max. Get streaming today by going to hbom.ax/kindafunnydc. That's hbom.ax/kindafunnydc. Next up, shout out to Rooster Teeth's Last Laugh Season 2. I was a huge fan of Season 1, mainly because my boy Alfredo was in it, but Season 2, can't wait for it. Here's the whole pitch for it. Do not laugh. It's part game show, part social experiment, 100% evil laugh challenge, spectacular. Last Laugh returns for a second season with 12 contestants gathered for 6 hours to see who literally laughs last. If they laugh, smile, or smirk, they're eliminated and prevented from dethroning Season 1 champion, the homie, Blaine Gibson. The hosts of the show, Jeff Ramsey and Elise Willems. So that's super awesome. They have a new collection of surprises, but will there be enough to break the contestants? We'll have to find out. Last Laugh Season 2 debuts September 9th on Rooster Teeth, but you can catch up on all of Season 1 right now.
And then I said, mustard, I prefer ketchup.
Kevin, no.
Why?
He has to be stopped.
He's on a roll today, everybody. Story number 3. Let's talk about Nintendo Switch dropping the price for this for the model in Europe. I jumbled that sentence, but you know what I said. This is from Danielle Partis at gamesindustry.biz. Nintendo has dropped the retail price for the base Switch console in the UK and mainland Europe. The standard price of the unit on the official Nintendo store is now £260, a £20 decrease from the previous price of £280. The new pricing leaves the base model sitting between the cost of a Switch Lite, which retails at £200, and the upcoming Switch OLED, which is slated to cost £310 at launch. From that, I'm going to pull from Tom Phillips at Eurogamer, who got a statement from Nintendo on the matter. Nintendo has explained today's original Switch model price change in Europe and said it is a reflection of both currency exchange rates and the upcoming launch of the Nintendo Switch OLED. Quote, Nintendo of Europe is changing the European trade price of the Nintendo Switch console to retailers, a company spokesperson told Eurogamer this morning. Quote, more than 4.5 years after its first release, Nintendo Switch continues to have strong sales momentum in Europe. After carefully weighing up a variety of factors, including currency exchange rates in Europe and the upcoming launch of Nintendo Switch OLED model, we've decided that now was the appropriate time to change the European trade price of Nintendo Switch. The trade prices of Nintendo Switch Lite and the upcoming Nintendo Switch OLED model are not affected. End quote. Tim, fucking Geddes. One, is this a surprise to you? Two, do you think this does anything for Switch prices in the US as well?
Yeah, I would say this does surprise me. I didn't necessarily expect a price drop to come with this, and if it did, I thought it would have been announced with the OLED announcement. What Europe means for America, I don't necessarily think this is a guarantee that it's going to happen. I do think that the OLED pricing where we're at now with the Switch Lite and the Switch OLED is interesting. Where it's like I feel there could be a little bit more disparity between it, especially when you compare the OLED price now rivaling the Xbox Series S and like other like major next gen consoles. So I wouldn't be surprised, but we're just in a weird place with the Switch that I guarantee Nintendo doesn't want to be, which is, hardware is already hard enough to put out. They're putting out this OLED model. They have the Lite, and the Switch core is just kind of there at this point. And I would not be surprised if they phase that out. I just don't think they're in a place to phase it out quite yet. But I think ideally they would have phased it out already. But a great way to phase a product out is to have a price drop. We see it happen with Apple all the time.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to utter some words that haven't been uttered in a while. The words are Switch Pro, Tim. Mm-hmm. When are we going to see that thing?
I mean,
Can we see that thing?
No. There will be a Switch Pro. I totally believe that we will. I just don't know at this point when that's going to be. And I'm so excited that this OLED's coming out. Like, we're less than a month away now from getting our hands on this thing, and I'm so excited that that's how I'm going to play Metroid Dread. Like, when that game comes out, I'm going to get to play a 2D Metroid game in bed on an OLED screen. Let's fucking go. But there's just still so many little things that are kind of a bummer. Like, I booted up my Switch to play WarioWare, which you can check out our review on the Gamescast last week. So I was playing through, and just once again, like, just dumb little things that at the end of the day don't really matter. But the UI being the resolution it is, it makes the Switch experience feel lesser than. And like, there was a video that came out recently of somebody using the Cemu emulator for Breath of the Wild running with ray tracing and like in 4K, and it was fucking gorgeous. Fucking gorgeous.
I can't imagine the things I would do for a Nintendo Switch or for a Nintendo console hardware that would run in the same run at the same rate of like a PS5 or an Xbox Series. Like, God, I couldn't imagine being able to play a Breath of the Wild game that is 60 FPS, 4K. Yep. Ray tracing. That was part of my No More Heroes 3 problem. Was like, so much of that game, I think my problems would have been eliminated if that game ran on just better hardware, right? Like, so much of it had to do with how the game looked and ran, and that game feels like a game that exists in the early 2010s, as opposed to a game that is coming out in 2021 that I am playing alongside something like a Deathloop, or I'm playing alongside just other action games, right? Something like a Devil May Cry 5. So yeah, that Switch Pro couldn't come soon enough, but I also know it's the thing of Switches are still selling. Switch OLEDs are gonna sell, right? Like, the Nintendo is not in a rush to put out these things as long as people keep showing up for them, and people keep showing up for them because Nintendo knows how to put out games for their own hardware, right? Like, they know how to put out quality products. Pokemon Brilliant Diamond is gonna be a hit, right? Like, those games are gonna sell. Pokemon Legends are Arceus. They say it different every time. Pokemon Legends is Arceus. Pokemon Legends is going to kill it, right? And that's another game that I look at and I'm like, man, I wish this was on a pro console. I wish this is on a console with better specs. But, until they have a reason to release it, they're probably not going to release it. And by the time they release it, we'll probably have seen even more of a jump in terms of like what contemporary consoles are doing in terms of fidelity and how games look, and how games are looking on Unreal Engine 5 and all these other things. And so we shall see.
We shall. Yeah, it's such a bummer. I've been a Nintendo fan my whole life, so I know this journey well. And there was always the thing of Nintendo consoles feeling a little less powered. Even back, like the N64 had its concessions made because of the cartridges compared to discs. And then going to GameCube, it was a similar thing where the GameCube was never the best looking of the multi-platform titles, but it really made use of those first-party titles where like the water in Mario Sunshine, the fur in Star Fox Adventures, like they really knew what they were doing with the hardware they had. And then with the Wii forward, obviously we understand the choices they made, but it was always interesting to me that art style is king, and it still is king. And Breath of the Wild's a perfect example of that. But still, when you have an art style with modern tech sensibilities, you get things like this, Kevin. If you could hit play, please. Jesus fucking Christ.
It blows my mind because Breath of the Wild is one of those games where playing it in 2017, I was like, this is one of the best looking games I've played. And that was purely from an art direction, art style standpoint. And I stand by that for the most part. Like when I boot up my Switch and I walk around in Breath of the Wild, I'm like, this game still looks stunning. But you do notice the things. You still notice the jaggies on the characters. You still notice those things here and there that very much feel like the hardware pulling it back as opposed to like the game not having a great vision. Breath of the Wild has such a good vision, but when you look at this video that you're showing us right here, which is Breath of the Wild running with ray tracing, and I forget, was it 4K as well?
Technically, this is 8K, but like even what we're watching is a compressed version on YouTube, and I think I've even pulled it up. It's not even on the full settings because we can't show it like that over the stream. But like it's gorgeous, and it's just the game, just with better tech to support it, right? And that's why I'm holding out for a Switch Pro, and I think that we'll get one. Like Nintendo has invested too much in the Switch and in building this kind of the market, where we've seen it with the PlayStation 4, where we make the argument of why would Sony want to move on from the PS4 so quickly when there aren't enough PS5s in the wild and there are 115 million or whatever PS4s. It's the same thing with the Switch. I imagine they're going to want to stick with this ecosystem for as long as possible, if not forever. And that just, in some ways, has to hold things back. But I'm hoping that in the same way that the Lite was their ultra portable Switch version, and now the OLED is still it only really adds enhancements for portable. The OLED means nothing if it's docked, right?
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing. So it's like, I'm hoping that we get a more home-focused one for people that want that. But anyways.
Tim, for now, let's talk about story number 4. Multiple Little Big Planet servers are shutting down. I'm pulling from Taylor Lyles at IGN. After months of issues, the team responsible for the upkeep of Little Big Planet announced today that several game servers have been shut down permanently. In a tweet posted on the official Little Big Planet account, the development team confirmed that the servers for the PS3 versions of Little Big Planet 1 through 3, as well as the PS Vita version of Little Big Planet, have been shut down permanently, citing a decision to ensure the game's, quote, online environment remains safe, end quote. The statement also notes that the developer has rolled out Game Update 1.27 for the PS4 version of Little Big Planet 3, which will remain playable online. The latest update restores the Little Big Planet online server to the PS4 game, meaning over 10 million community levels are playable again. Those levels are inclusive of all content created for the entire mainline Little Big Planet series, as the games are tethered together such that Little Big Planet 3 players can play any user-created levels, including ones from the first 2 games. Despite that update, the news is a major blow for the Little Big Planet community, with fans in the replies of the announcement tweet expressing sadness that they will not have a chance to play Little Big Planet 1 and 2 in the same way again. The server shutdown doesn't render the games totally unplayable. Single-player campaigns remain playable, and users can create their own levels, but they can no longer upload or download levels. Some fans have replied sharing memories they have of playing the games and creating their own levels. And this is one that's pretty much the video game circle of life. Am I right, Tim?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It has to happen at some point. It's always a sad thing to see, especially for a game that is so community focused and user created based. But it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense, especially when they cite here online helping or ensuring the online environment remains safe. And I'm not sure entirely what that means. I assume it probably means curation of content, like stuff that's inappropriate, stuff that they managing that stuff and making sure that it is not abusive content on the platform. That's what I assume. It might mean something more than that, but reading that's what that reads like to me. And I totally understand the fact that, hey, you kind of have to constantly keep a team devoted to this thing in order to have it upkeep, right? In order to have it stay online. And if if we're a decade past the releases of Little Big Planets 1 and 2, and you do have Little Big Planet 3 that exists that keep those levels alive. I get why you do this or why you have to do this eventually. Of course, it's always a sad story, but it also makes sense with the inevitability of things. Tim, let's round out the Roper Report with story number 5. Hideo Kojima wants to make games that change in real time. This is Tom Ivan at VGC. Hideo Kojima has said he wants to create games that change in real time. In an interview with Japanese publication Anon, the Metal Gear Solid and Death Stranding creator was asked how he'd like to evolve his games in the future. Quote, "What I want to do is make games that change in real time," he said. "People of all ages and professions are playing the same game, but everyone is playing the same way. Instead, it's something that changes depending on where you live and how you feel about it. I made a game called Boktai, The Sun Is in Your Hand before. It's a portable Game Boy Advanced. It's a portable Game Boy Advance with a sun sensor. Oh, there's a typo in there. I'm going to say it's a portable Game Boy Advanced game with a sun sensor and a clock. The amount of light from the sun is reflected in the game to defeat vampires, so the game changes depending on where and when you play. This kind of device connects the system created by people to the real world," end quote. Kojima, who turned 58 years old in August, marked the occasion by vowing to continue creating for as long as possible. Quote, "Although my body is failing me, my creativity is not winning yet," he said. "Until my brain loses its creative power, I'll continue to strive to create things. That's my instinct, and that's what I love to do," end quote. Tim, how you feel about that?
I feel great about that, Bless. I love that Kojima's tweeting as much as he is. I love that me and you seem to talk about it a lot on this show. I love that this weekend after the Matrix 4 trailer came out, he had a whole thread about his thoughts on it. And Bless, I don't think I've ever wanted something more than Hideo Kojima's thoughts on the Matrix.
Oh my God, yeah.
Crazy shit. God bless it. And here we are, him saying like that he's going to keep creating until he can't do it anymore. That's what we need from people like Hideo Kojima, man. That's what he wants. That is what he wants to do with his life. And God bless it. Let's go. I hope that we get a lot more weird and wacky things. I also hope that we get some things that make a little bit more sense for my sensibilities. But you know what? That's kind of how art works, right? Like at some point your favorite artists are going to be doing something different, but that something different is going to mean as much as the thing you loved to you to somebody else. So that's great.
Exactly. I love that. Tim, I'm excited to play the next Hideo Kojima game, but the release of that game is probably just so far away. If I would know what's coming out to mom and pop shops today, where'd I look?
The official list of upcoming software across each and every platform as listed by the Kinda Funny Games Daily Show host each and every weekday.
Yeah. Out today, we got nothing. There's nothing out today. It's one of those rare Mondays where we got nothing on the list. Yeah. But we do have a new date for you. Lens Island is coming to Steam Early Access for PC and Mac on November 5th, 2021. Remember, you can go to patreon.com/kindafunnygames where you can get the show ad free, but you can also get your questions read on the show, just like Parker Begale did. Parker writes in and says, "Hey, Kinda Funny crew, I need everyone's help, but mostly Tim. I finally locked in a PS5 and a Series X, but I have no clue where to start with TV and monitors, and I want to take full advantage of the consoles. What should I look into? Should I wait until Black Friday sales? What should I pay attention to for specs? Cheers, everyone. Parker B." Tim, the floor is yours.
The answer is simple. It's the LG OLED series. You want the C1 series or the CX series. Either way, you're going to be totally fine. By the time you're talking about this, we're going to be looking at the C2 series, which will be next year's at some point. So any of those are going to be totally fine for you. There's a lot of TVs you can get that are going to be great, but nothing as a gamer is going to rival that experience. I could not recommend it more. It is literally the one thing that I'm like, yes, it costs more than a lot of TVs. It's getting down to the point that we're talking about $1,200 can get you one of the greatest TVs ever made. And if you're the type of person that's buying a PS5 and a Series X, it's going to be worth the extra time and money to get one of these things. My advice, go as big as you possibly can, budget permitting, because you're going to regret not going higher if you have the means and desire to, because you're going to want to. And I have not seen a single person not say that this is one of the best investments they've ever made. If you give a shit about playing games at all, and you care about tech, you care about any of that stuff, like it's going to be worth the investment. And I know at this point, tens of people that have got it based on my recommendation, and every single one of them is just like, you were fucking right. So There you go. Check it out. LG OLED series. C1s have a couple gaming features for like just making these a little bit easier for switching between consoles and system settings and stuff. But honestly, you're going to get a very, very, very damn good experience with the CX as well. And you can pretty much tweak it to do anything the C1 can. You can probably get it for a couple $100 cheaper though. So if that means something to you, go with that. But I'd recommend the C1.
You heard it here first. Now it's time to squad up. geekreate writes in the squad up and says, I did the squad up a long while back at the end of November 2020 and didn't get any takers. But now that Blessing has picked it up, he noted that a lot of Kinda Funny best friends have been getting into the game, which I think is great. This is where I'm going to pause here and realize that he didn't put the game into his actual write-up. He's talking about Genshin Impact on PC mobile, PlayStation 4, and PlayStation 5 for crossplay. geekreate continues, I'm adventure level 54, so if you're newer to the game, you probably won't be able to join my world, but I can join yours. I have maxed out characters and characters that need more love, so whether you want me to fucking wreck a boss you're having a hard time with, or to use a character more on par with your world level, I can do either. And if you're an OG like me, we can also vibe. Everybody, go play some Genshin Impact with geekreate. You can add them with the UID 612-040-573. That is 612-040-573 if you want to play with geekreate, who is adventure rank 54. Of course, you can go to kindafunny.com/you're-wrong, where you write in, let us know what we got wrong as we got it wrong so we can correct it for those watching later, on youtube.com/kindafunnygames and on podcast services around the globe. Nanobiologist writes in and says, KF Polo when? And I have the same question, Tim. KF Polo when?
That's actually a really damn good question. I mean, here's the answer, Bless. We got to build this up more. We got to build up the legacy of the Blessing Polo. And what we need to do is it needs to be a Blessing collab. This needs to be like I love this. What is the Blessing Polo? Right?
I love this.
Think about it.
I'll think about it. If you have ideas out there, feel free to tweet at me. I'll relay them to Tim. That sounds great. What up?
The Blessing Show doesn't have any merch.
Oh man, you are absolutely right. I love where we're at right now.
So yeah, think about it. Let's go.
Kebab writes in and says, a 10 isn't perfect at IGN. On the IGN scale, a 10 is a masterpiece. I appreciate that. I did refer to it as perfect, which like 10 out of 10, you can easily just say.
You said it was a perfect score. Yeah. It is a perfect score.
Yeah. Kebabs also writes in to say, today, IGN has given out 24 10s. This does not count the 12 or so 10 out of 10s that one reviewer gave to a number of Game Boy games in the early days. And then Nanobiologist writes in to say, what Kevin wants with an event to kick off the season has happened. With the start of Season 6, it started with an event on Boot Up that kicked off the event. It's the one where Peely got Hadoukened by Ken. So take that, Kevin.
Hey, real quick. Sorry, it's Greg Miller, kindafunny.com. How is everybody today?
Fantastic.
Pretty good.
Good. I just had a quick live you're wrong, if you don't mind. Sorry. Tim mentioned how the Blessing Show doesn't have any merch, and I thought, as my episode is the most successful episode of the Blessing Show, I should come in, maybe have a say in what the polo looks like. And of course, as the king of Halloween who knows what the real Halloween colors are, I would say it should be an orange and black polo. Tim, I just like to put that out there for everybody.
Listen, I for one would love an orange and black polo.
Yeah, but you'd think it was Easter colors because you don't know anything.
Because I for one have always known orange and black to be the Halloween colors, and so like as somebody who I don't proclaim to be the king of Halloween. I'm just a guy who loves Halloween. The audience proclaims to be king of Halloween
at all. In spirit, Halloween smoke on this that matter. It doesn't matter. Blessing Show. I'm the most successful one. Orange and black polo. Thank you, Tim. Good night.
God damn.
Why is he coming in here and like
monster?
Why did he say good night? Why did he say 11
everything about it is upsetting.
It is 11 a.m. right now, and I know Greg knows that. It's not like he's in a fucking different time coast or whatever the fuck. This week's hosts for Kinda Funny Games Daily are: on Tuesday, you're getting Greg and Gary Witta. On Wednesday, you're getting me and Andy. On Thursday, you're getting Tamoor and Tim for a Tim Tam Thursday. Then on Friday, you're getting Greg and myself. If you're watching this live on Twitch, after this is Mike and Nick.
No, before that. It's a Hawkeye trailer reaction. Let's go, man.
Hell yeah. And then after that, you're going to get some Mike and Nick playing some video games. And we'll catch that stream later. Of course, you can go to youtube.com/kindafunnyplays for the stream. If you want the reacts, of course, go to youtube.com/kindafunny. Remember, this has been Kinda Funny Games Daily, each and every weekday live right here on twitch.tv/kindafunnygames. We run you through the nerdy news you need to know about. We have a Patreon post show for those that are subbed at the silver level of patreon.com/kindafunnygames. So stick around for that. Otherwise, until next time, game daily.